Democratic states calls for federal crackdown on gas stoves. And these are the same people that try to say that they are not trying to take away gas stoves, but at the side of their mouth, that's exactly what's going on. And also, these are the same ones that's telling you to trust the science, but there is absolutely no science that shows that gas stoves cause a hazard, but yet they want to legislate and create rules and laws like it does. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon where I talk about things I can't talk about here. There's also a link to my Instagram in my merch store where I have I Will Not Comply t-shirts. And check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for news as well. I keep the latest news there. All right, let's talk about this news. A coalition of 11 Democratic attorneys general who wrote to federal regulators Monday urging them to take action cracking down on natural gas powered stovetops over concerns their impact on respiratory health. Again, there's absolutely no science behind this whatsoever. But the letter, led by Washington, D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwab, and joined by his counterparts in New York, Massachusetts, and Maryland, among other states, to the Consumer Products Safety Commission, came in response to the agency's request for information about gas stove hazards in March. The state's attorneys general argued in favor of heightened restrictions on the appliance. Quote, today I'm leading 11 AGs calling for the federal action to address the health and safety risk of gas stoves, which emit pollutants that have desperate negative impacts on children and underserved communities and put DC residents at risk of asthma and other respiratory illnesses, Schwab tweeted. He goes on to say, I urge the CPSC to develop uniform performance and ventilation standards for gas stoves and to increase consumer awareness about health risks these appliances pose, he added. Schwab's letter argued that the CPSC should adopt voluntary standards or mandatory regulation curbing gas stove emissions that, quote, degrade indoor air quality in homes nationwide. The attorneys general pointed to government studies showing household appliances, including gas stoves, are contributors to indoor carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, and particle pollution. In addition, the state's officials said the CPSC should superhead a public education campaign about the harms of gas stoves while requiring manufacturers to attach warning labels to products. But again, they try to say it's science. There really isn't any science behind it whatsoever. And, I mean, I looked. I couldn't find anything pertaining to that. Now, all of a sudden, gas stoves is a problem. We have been using gas stoves for hundreds of years, but now it's a problem. Quote, in sum, the presence of gas stoves in households, even when not in use, can lead to indoor air pollution levels that pose a severe health risk, especially for particular susceptible consumers such as children and for households in underserved communities, they wrote to the CPSC. The states urge the CPSC to take action that would reduce the health hazard posed by these appliances. They continue. The CPSC may do this by developing regulations, including performance standards for active and off modes and ventilation requirements that would drastically reduce the emissions from gas stoves. While the attorneys general floated the possibility of addressing health concerns through voluntary standards supported by industry, they later argued such an action may lead to, quote, inadequate standards that will not protect against the health risks of consumers. Instead, they said CPSC should initiate rulemaking to develop mandatory gas stove standards. So here they go. Here go the Democrats again, wanting to regulate us into oblivion, where you're going to have to ask the government to breathe. But, quote, mandatory performance standards could include, among other standards for gas stoves, to address methane leakage, including automatic shutoff valves and standards that address the elevated levels of hazardous pollution emissions, including sensors, they added in the letter. And the letter also lauded efforts in Washington, D.C. and New York, where natural gas hookups will soon be banned in new construction, which is utterly ridiculous. In January, a President Biden appointed CPSC member said a nationwide ban on gas stoves was on the table, citing potential respiratory health concerns. The comments sparked outrage among Republicans, consumer advocacy groups, and the gas industry, and ultimately forced the White House to disavow any potential ban. The blowback also forced the CPSC to distance itself from a ban on the appliance. But on March 1st, it issued its request for information asking stakeholders for feedback on how to mitigate potential harms posed by gas stoves. The agency gave the public until Monday to file comments. Quote, the SPSC has called for information related to chronic hazards associated with gas stoves and proposed solutions, the American Gas Association, a leading industry group, said in its comments Monday. This presumes that there are chronic hazards that needs to be addressed. AGA respectfully submit that the available body of scientific research does not provide sufficient or consistent evidence demonstrating that there are chronic hazards from gas stoves. And that's what I was alluding to. I didn't see anything that definitively show that gas powered stoves are an issue. Um, which is ridiculous. Again, this is the same stuff they pulling with the climate change stuff and everything, all their other stuff. They're using this stuff to push their agenda for control, and this is another control mechanism. Because think about it, what's more powerful than you losing electricity and still being able to cook and stuff on a stovetop because you got natural gas? They don't want that. They want you to rely on government and rely on them. But let me know what you think. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And check out democrepublics.com and jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.